6/2022 at 6:30 p.m. With us, we have Committee Member President Todd McGee, and we also have Committee Member Councilor Murphy Ramboletti on Zoom. Other councilors, we have Councilor Jordan here with us in the chambers, and then on Zoom we have Councilor Puello and Councilor Anderson-Burgos. And two other shout-outs real quick. We have our administrative assistant doing all the great work in the background, Jeffrey Anderson-Burgos, and from the solicitor's office, Kathleen Degnan. So thank you all for being here tonight.
All right, so you want to take up
I think
one first, item one? Move from the table.
Do you want to do the and then second?
I'll do the.
Can I actually? Hi everyone. Sorry. Can I actually ask to take a couple items out of order?
Sure.
Just out of respect for the maker of the orders who's here and also just not feeling very well. So we want to kind of get him able to relax again. That would be item 6. 8 and 9 as a package, and 10 and 11 as a package, if possible.
All right, so 6 is from Councilor Anderson-Burgos. Then we have 8, 9,
and then 10 and 11.
All right, so you want to take 6,
First.
8, and 9 first? Is that
6 by itself.
Sure.
Those are different.
all right? So 6 by itself, and then 8 and 9, then 10 and 11.
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure the order. Okay, so take up item 6.
So a motion to take up item 6 off the table.
Second.
Any opposed? All those in favor?
All opposed? Aye.
Aye.
So it's just
All opposed? Any opposed? Oh. Okay, so item 6. Order from Councilor Anderson-Burgos ordered that Rule 32 be amended to add "and marijuana establishments" after "except for home occupation" to the description of the D&GR Committee. This needs to be updated to reflect that the Ordinance Committee handles those petitions. So we do have Councilor Anderson-Burgos online if you wanted to speak real quick about that order.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so what's been happening is a lot of applicants are confused about the process and where their applications are being head to. So this is basically, because the current rule, it does state that the permits go to DGR except for home occupations. So our administrative assistant, has had applicants call him, and like I said, they're confused about the process. So this is going to help streamline that and just make it a lot less confusing. And that's the purpose of this order. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any discussion? Before we discuss, I want to announce Councilor VACON came into the chamber, so welcome, Councilor VACON.
Thank you.
Did you want to go? All right, Councilor VACON.
Yeah, I just have one brief comment. I don't find anything wrong with this, but I would just note that the city council can send any order that comes to it to a committee that they deem appropriate. Our rules are not binding on the council to send one to any particular place. However, it is true that DGR usually handles one set of special permits, and ordinance usually handles another. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor VACON. Any other discussion?
I'd say make a motion to approve, recommend it to the full council.
Okay, so Councilor McGee made a motion to approve and recommend to the full city council. All agree?
Yep.
Anyone
Aye.
agree? Aye.
Opposed?
Tessa? Any opposed? Well, we got the majority.
Yep.
All right, so,
She can always come back on if she dropped off and vote.
okay.
Wait,
There she is.
okay, you can hear me now. Sorry.
No, you're good, you're good.
I'm in favor. Great.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so item 6 is done and over with.
So then, motion to go out of the order to 8 and 9 as a package.
Second. All agree?
Second.
Aye.
Anyone?
Aye.
No? Okay, so items number 8 and number 9. For our two orders, one by Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti, the other one by Councilor Anderson-Burgos. The first order, item 8, is order that the City Council amend or clarify enforcement of Rule 61 so that a committee must act on an order within 30 days of City Council referral. Any order not acted on within 30 days shall be deemed tabled. And then item 9 by Councilor Anderson-Burgos is ordered that Rule 61 be amended by inserting or at the next meeting of the committee, whichever comes later afterwards 30 days. Also amend this rule by adding a new section that reads, orders laid on the table in a committee shall be acted on with a vote or with or without recommendation within 6 months of the committee receiving them. If not acted on, they should be placed on the agenda of the next regular city council meeting for action, referral, or disposal. Orders may be acted on at the end of the term following the one which they are filed. Such orders that remain in committee following the end of the term after the one in which they were filed shall be placed on the agenda for the next regular city council meeting for disposal. This is to make sure that orders are handled in a timely manner when councilors file them for consideration and to establish a step to be taken if they are not taken up. It also clarifies a time period before orders go stale and can no longer be acted on. So any members of the committee, well, Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti, you put in the first order. You want-
Yeah, really the spirit of this order is very similar to Councilor Anderson-Burgos in that it is a rule of our city council currently that all orders sent to any subcommittee be acted upon, taken up, not disposed of within 30 days. My idea with adding that any order not acted on within 30 days shall be deemed tabled would really just allow for further transparency of what certain orders have been filed, what's waiting in committee. As of right now, I know our administrative assistant is doing a really great job trying to put together a matrix of sorts that will help the public understand where orders go and what has happened to them. But in my opinion, I filed this order simply because I wanted to ensure that things were not only being acted on in a timely manner, but also that the public and the body is aware of orders and where they have gone, because sometimes they can sit in committee for months or even years, and we just don't really have a clear understanding of what's actually happening. So that's really the reasoning behind my my filing, and I'll defer to Councilor Anderson-Burgos to discuss his thoughts on the matter as well.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti. Councilor Anderson-Burgos, you want to speak on your order?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So a lot of points that Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti made is basically a lot of my reasonings behind it too, but it really has two parts. The first part is just to recognize that subcommittees, they don't meet every month. And it's to clarify that they should take it up at their next meeting if they don't meet within 30 days of getting an order. So that's one. The next part gives like a deadline for an order to be voted on before it goes back to the full city council. And if it's not acted on, the full city council gets back and they can vote on it, or send it back to committee. This fixes, a lot of the issues that I've seen over my past 4 years. It decreases confusion, especially with new elected officials. I've seen items that come up a couple years later and I'm confused about it because to be honest, I forgot about it. And, this really streamlines our functionality at our committees and as a body as a whole. So that's the basic reason why I filed this order.
Thank you, Councilor Anderson-Burgos. I just want to quickly recognize Councilor Israel Rivera that came in on Zoom and Attorney Mike Bissonette. Thank you for coming to the meeting. Any other discussion on items 8 and 9? Councilor Jordan?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no problem with Counselor Murphy Ramboletti's request. Makes sense. So no trouble there. As far as Counselor Anderson-Burgos' one goes, I like the spirit of where he's going with it, but I would say that couple of things. Orders may be acted on up to the end of the term following the one in which they are filed. So that would mean 4 years, because if I file something today, the term following the one that they were filed would be 4 years from now. I don't know how timely that is, and I like the approach that Counselor Murphy Ramboletti went with, and that's why I co-sponsored it with her, that I really am of the opinion we clear the jacket every 2 years. And I think that's the approach we should take. And really, item 9 is not necessary here, because if we just get the chairs to clean the jackets out, either by rule or by being efficient chairman, we don't have this problem. Like, for example, we had ordinance the other day. There was orders there that were as old as 6 years old coming out. You gotta stay on top of the housekeeping of your committees, so that if stuff isn't gonna be acted on either at the beginning of the terms or the end of the terms, you gotta clean house and get all that stuff back. The committees cannot, the council ultimately has to take some final action on these items. So it has to go back at some point. So my recommendation is I think if we get 8, we don't need 9. And if we just have either we pass the rule that says we clean house every 2 years, which I like that, and make that a new rule, or the chairs just do it. I mean, you just take the stuff up and you clean house every 2 years. Either way, I like the idea of having a rule, but otherwise, I'm kind of leaning on the chairs to do that housekeeping. So that would be my comment.
Cool. Thank you, Councilor Jordan. Any other discussion? Councilor Bacon?
Thank you. So for those of you who are members of the Ordinance Committee, you're aware that last night, I think we cleaned out 20 to 30 orders that had been sitting in the jacket, maybe 1 or 2 from 2016, but the majority from 2018 and 2019. So by the sheer volume and the fact that there are still others to be dealt with that were in the jacket, while I'm warm to being efficient and taking things up timely, the amount of orders that come into Ordinance Committee have never been dealt with in accordance with the rules of the council since I have served on the council. And we can make the rule be whatever we want to say it to be. But the old rule was 45 days. And as you can see from the orders in the jacket, that didn't happen. And I don't think simply by making it a shorter timeline is going to make it any easier to accomplish. So as a practical matter, I don't like to have a rule I know I can't comply with. On the other hand, I don't think there's anybody signing up to meet every week in Ordinance Committee. And we have a pretty heavy load in that committee. So I'm just speaking from a practical point of view. Philosophically, yes. It's good to take everything up timely and address it and deal with it. As a practical matter, I'm just not so sure.
Thank you, Councilor
Thank
Bacon.
you.
Councilor McGee?
Yep, thank you. Both orders are very good in the sense that we're trying to deal with really certain committees that have a heavy load on assignments and orders and things that have to be accomplished. And it does make it hard. Is 30 days enough? Is 45 days enough? Would 60 days be better? So I think that's something that we all have to vet. The real issue is you got rules that compete with each other. Rule 36 says, no ordinance shall be adopted, amended, or deleted by the City Council until it shall have first been referred to the Standing Committee on Ordinance. So you have to send things to ordinance by rule. Then 58 says, let's get to 58. that ordinances should now be drawn into legal form unless the ordinance committee has taken a vote on the matter. So if you have something sitting in there for 30, 45, 60 days, you still really can't take any action on it until you deal with 36 and 58, which is it has to go to the committee, so that's where it is. If it sits there for 30 days, you just can't table it because the committee itself has to vote on it to then put it into legal form in order for the full council to address it. So where 8 and 9, I get the full intent and support it. We shouldn't have things sitting in committee. And Councilor Vacon is absolutely right. So is Councilor McGivern, Councilor Bartley when he was at D&GR. Those committees are overburdened with stuff, and therefore they technically, although they try, they technically can't get stuff done in 30 days. So is it better that we move the 30 days to 60 or 40, whatever the number is that we all agree on, to make it helpful for them to have a little time to get to the order, but then have an end-all, which is what Councilor Murphy, Ramboletti, and Councilor Anderson-Burgos are saying is people need to know when the order is going to come up. And it has to come up, and I've been an advocate for that. If you don't like what I file, I'm all right with it. I'll deal with it. You vote no, that's fine. I've had things go around the room where I vote yes, Kevin was here, and everyone else voted no. That is what it is. But that has to be brought up and it has to be brought out. And I think that's kind of what I'm seeing with the intent here is we have to start acting on some of these things. It's we're not pointing fingers or anything in the sense of things are getting lost in committee. They just brought up, they cleared out 20-something items.
I think it was item 16 through item 54.
Yeah. And
It was a huge stack.
It's huge because there's so much. We file all this stuff and then we forget about it because we're on to the next assignment. So I guess my whole intent is you have Rule 36 and 58 that you also have to address with 61 as to how this all flows better. Then ultimately, what is a fair time frame to allow the committees to actually be able to take stuff up, but then ultimately have that final number so that people know that their order will be taken up. And if it's not, then I do like in the sense of, well, it becomes table and it has to come out. And it allows us to vote on it and not sit in committee. Mm-hmm. Now, it might be that if that were to occur, then that after, I'm making up an example, after 60 days, if nothing happens, it is tabled, which then forfeits Rule 36, or really 36 would already gone, forfeits 58. Something like that. I mean, I'm just trying to, you fix 61, but you still got 58 looming. That you have to address.
So Rule 61 just says right now, as is written, is all orders sent to any subcommittee be acted upon, taken up, not disposed of within 30 days, and that's all it says. I think part of the reason why these orders are put in place is to deal with what happens when it's not taken up in 30 days. So I think the intention was to table it within the committee. I'm not sure if that's right. Councilor Murphy Ramboletti can chime in, but keeping it tabled within the committee so that it shows up in every committee agenda and so that the people are aware that this item is in the committee. We can, as a committee, decide to table it over and over again, essentially, which is not what we want, but it's also I guess at some point, as a committee, we have to decide, well, can we even deal with this order right now? We discussed it, we can't deal with it, send it back to council, but it needs to be acted upon.
You have to have action.
Yeah.
Right.
So
To me, just the tabling where, okay, it's been tabled, it's tabled. If I'm a person that requested from a counselor, I want this done, whether it's going to be voted up or down, and I just sit there month after month, as a constituent, that's not fair to them.
For sure.
So that's why you got to have a finality to it in the sense of what's the ultimate goal. After X number of days, is it kicked out of committee for the full council to act, or the committee is required to take it up?
Councilor Anderson-Burgos, real quick. Sorry, Councilor Bacon.
It's okay.
Councilor Anderson-Burgos?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to clarify something. So when I said something, when an order is tabled or wherever it may be at the end of the term and then to be taken up at the next term, that's not 4 years. That's if an order was filed in December. That's not 4 years. So I don't want the other counselor to get confused about that point. Secondly, another reason why I filed this order, and I'm not going to be specific about the order, but I will tell you this. I filed an order that went into ordinance. This was my first term. It didn't see the day of light, and there's reason behind that, and I'm not going to get behind the details of why that was. But it was, I feel that it was intentionally put and left in the jacket without even being discussed. And it wasn't until I became chair of ordinance and then Chair Lisi became the chair of ordinance that this item was taken up. And then that was a fiasco. Okay, so I feel that orders are sometimes intentionally left in jackets. Again, I'm not going to go into the details, but this order is specifically to address a lot of the issues I have seen in my 4 years while I was sitting in council and going to these meetings. This needs to stop. This order will help address that. This order will help the functionality of this body and its true intent of what it was supposed to be done. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Anderson-Burgos. Councilor Bacon?
Thank you. So I am hearing the point that the counselor is making on the timing of his filing of this order. And I would note in this public meeting that we took many orders out of the jacket that were not taken up over the last 2 years, last 3 years, etc. So this is not a new occurrence. It is not anything that has been unusual since I've been on the council. But what has been unusual, and I'll file another order to clean up the orders, our rules further if I need to, is that matters go before the council, they fail at the council, so people just keep refiling the same orders over and over and over. Even when the council has dealt with it timely, it's been taken up, brought to the council, and not passed. So then it's simply refiled or reconsidered, sent back to committee, to the point where there's total confusion as to what the status is. It didn't pass in the council, then it got reconsidered and sent back to committee. So what exactly is the status of it? So if we're gonna, you will have to have an agenda with 50 items on it for every ordinance committee meeting in order to meet timeliness rules. And quite frankly, based on the comments I just heard from a past recent member of the Ordinance Committee, he knows very well all the orders didn't get taken up in that committee last year, the year before, any other year prior to that also. So you may be trying to fix a problem, but I'm just saying you're creating another problem.
Thank you, Councilor Bacon. I would say, like, whether it's intentional or not, we, as mentioned before, we do have a lot of orders on there that are just left on there for many years, and we need to do something about it. So I think
we're cleaning them up.
We're hopefully this will just like Councilor Jordan, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just say on a side note, I wasn't really going to address this point, but Robert's Rules of Order also speaks to the point of you're not supposed to keep filing the same orders after the body deals with something and it's defeated or adopted. You know, that matter has already come up before, so that issue has already been resolved for that session, is the way Robert's Rules of Order. So does that mean the term? You know, I'm just gonna, okay, council defeats it. All right, 1 month later, I'm gonna refile the same thing, and then we just keep going. So has your issue really been not taken up? Sometimes I wonder, people keep filing. The particular issue I think he's referring to has been filed before this council no less than about 8 times. Okay, so how many times is the answer no? You know, we just keep coming back with the same issue, the same issue, the same issue. I could be wrong, could be something else, but if I think I'm using my Nostradamus skills, I think that might be it. The other point I wanted to make is the proposal item 9 says 6 months. Proposal 8 says 30 days. Maybe 6 months if somebody's looking for something really egregious. Maybe that's 6 months, okay. But what I was trying to point out to Juan was the language in his proposal says, orders may be acted upon up to the end of the term following the one in which they are filed. Okay, so that works if you file it in December, 1 month before the term ends, then that's only going to be 25 months. But what if you filed in January of 2022? That's going to be December 2025. That's 47 months, right? If I file an order now, it says may be acted upon up to the end of the term following the one in which it was filed. We're in this term. So if I filed something today, that would be 47 months from now, would be the deadline, right? That's the plain reading of that.
In which they are filed.
Up to the end of the term following the one in which it was filed. So,
That part. I mean,
whereas I think if we say on the rule, everything's got to be cleaned, like we start from fresh at every 2 years, I think that avoids all that problem, you know? That's why I thought that was a good proposal, so. Anyways, I think we're all on the same page of the intent.
Right.
For sure.
Just the mechanics of it, and these committees, like ordinance, just has a huge monster-sized thing, and it has a lot of these things which we have no control over. People file things all the time, and you have all these legal requirements to meet that. That stuff just takes up top priority over some of these other items, unfortunately.
Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. And I would also note that at times there are orders that are held in the jacket because we've been requested to hold them by legal. There may be a pending court case going on. They don't want to give us language till they see how that comes out. And so there can be any number of reasons, including, the ones that have been cited by the maker of the order, but there's certainly a lot more than one reason why things stay in the jacket.
So one thing's coming up for me, so you've all made good points, but I think there's also the transparency part of it, as far as do the members of the public know what orders are in the jackets, and how do we make that accessible to them? So I think part of the reason why we want to table the orders if they're not taken up after 30 days is so that they are visible on the public agenda, so that the public can see what are the items. So I think that's also a separate discussion as far as working with Jeffrey, and I know he's been doing a great job with the matrix and really trying to organize the order so that the public is aware of what's in the jacket, what's in committee, where it's at.
Could we file an order, Mr. Chairman, that just says on our website, we list every active order in every committee?
Would that order it would be filed for the next
Yeah, like
council?
you and I, or whatever. We could all file an order that says we'll have a rule that says the administrative assistant shall publish on our Facebook page a list of every active order
In the standing.
in every committee. So this
exists.
way the public, if they wanted to, they could say, give me the 106 orders that are in ordinance right now, or whatever that number is.
Minus 20-something. We got
Exactly, yeah.
Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti?
Hi. Just to clarify, for what it's worth, I would be totally open to, right now the rule says 30 days, and Councilor Bacon mentioned that it used to be 45, and so I'm not sure what the intent was shortening that time frame. But for the sake of compromise, I am, obviously open to like a 60-day thing. For me, it really was about more about the transparency of knowing where things are. So while I can totally appreciate that, an agenda might have all of the things listed out in that are tabled in committee, I think the alternative of not knowing where things are is much less convenient and transparent for constituents. So, for what it's worth, it doesn't have to be 30 days. We could agree on a different time frame, but I do echo, Councilor Jordan's thoughts about figuring out some system that it sounds like our administrative assistant Jeff is working on to really better, communicate this to the public. So those are just my thoughts. I'm not married to 30 days. It's fine, but just something that we can all agree on so that it's very clear to ourselves and to the public, what exactly is waiting in committee.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti. So as I'm hearing right now, doesn't seem like any motion to change anything for the rule. Maybe motion to add your language and any order not acted on within 30 days shall be deemed tabled, just as of right now, with the motion to put in the order about that our administrative assistant publishes all of our orders and they're able to see it online, and also with the 2-year legislative term discussion coming up. So where do we want to go from?
I think you're taking that up at the next Rules Committee, right, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, the next one.
Yeah, good.
So are you amending one of these, or what did you want to say, or?
I wouldn't. I would keep the language of the 30 days. Shall be deemed tabled.
Okay, so item 8, saying leave as is, and motion would be to approve and send out to the full council?
Approve and send out to the full council
On 8.
on 8.
Okay.
Councilor Bacon.
So I just want to note that the practical effect of that will be that every order that is sent to Ordinance Committee will essentially be tabled. That will be the practical effect.
I think the 30 days is not, for certain committees like this committee, sure. But for ordinance, DG&R, finance, it could happen, but rare. I mean, 2 committees we know are overburdened. Giving them a little more time, I think, would be better than just saying 30 days, and we know with absolute certainty certain things are going to be taken up in 30 days. So maybe 45, I heard that number out there. I mean, I'd make a motion to amend the 30 to 45.
Motion to amend the 30 days to 45. Do I hear a second?
Second?
Any opposed? I mean, all agree? Yay. Any opposed? No. So the item 8 has been amended from 30 days to 45 days. Which
give it a try.
It's meaningless.
Well, so and the reason I would say 45 days, I think the intention is still there, like tabled, and hopefully we will have another meeting next month, which will talk about the legislative terms, and we'll talk about other items that were discussed during this meeting that hopefully by the time the 45 days come up in March, it would address the whole ordinance jacket ordeal.
Take a look at it again.
Yeah. Cool. So the motion would be to
Approve item 8
as amended, and I'll read it. Order that the City Council amend or clarify enforcement of Rule 61, so the committee must act on an order within 45 days of City Council referral. Any order not acted on within 45 days should be deemed table. All agree?
Aye.
Aye. Councilor Murphy?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Yeah, sorry. It's a delay here.
You're good. Okay. So that's item 8. 45 days, sent to full city council. Item 9, I would make a motion. I mean, the only part out of item 9 that really sticks out to me, the orders laid on the table of committee shall be acted on with a vote or with or without recommendation within 6 months of the committee receiving them. But I believe item 8 covers a lot of what we were looking for tonight for right now.
Do you want to just table it for now? So that way we have something in the jacket. If the 45 days isn't really working, we can always come back to this one if needed.
Councilor Anderson-Burgos.
What Councilor President McGee just said is exactly my thought. Table it in the meantime and to see if item number 8 actually is functional and works within our needs.
Cool. So the motion is to table item number 9. Any second?
Second.
They all approve.
Yay.
Yay. Any
Yay.
any opposed? Cool. Item number 9 is tabled.
So make a motion to take up, I think it was 10 and 11?
Correct.
Was as a package?
Motion made to take items 10 and 11 as a package. All agree?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Cool. So item 10, number 11, item 10, both are orders filed by Councilor Anderson-Burgos. The first one is ordered that a new rule be created stating that for the purposes of determining voting majorities and supermajorities at full city council meetings, eligible voting members shall mean the full body of the city council, except any members that may have properly abstained from participating in a debate for a vote. In addition, in any rules referring to the full membership of the city council for determining a voting majority or supermajority, amend them to state eligible members of the city council. These locations are in Rule 35 and 66. And then item 11, order that the Rule 38 be amended by striking out a 2/3 supermajority and replacing it with a majority of all eligible members. Any discussion? Councilor Anderson-Burgos, if you want to speak about the orders.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So referring to item number 10, so the issue when someone abstains, it should be as their voice isn't even a factor. So by having votes be tied into the entire membership of the council, someone who abstains essentially becomes a vote of opposition. And I believe that it goes against the intent of what it means to abstain. So it is not fair if someone has to abstain that the full majority is that number also included of someone who's abstaining. It should be of those members who are there present, not including the abstained, if you know what I mean.
Yep. So just because you reference Rule 35 and Rule 66, we want to read them real quick. Rule 35 states that any ordinance, order, resolution, or vote involving the appropriation or expenditure of money to an amount which may exceed $200 shall require for its passage the affirmative votes of a majority of all members of the city council. So that's one of the parts you want to change. Every such ordinance, order, resolution, or vote shall be read twice with an interval of at least 3 days between the two readings before being finally passed. And at the vote of its final passage should be taken by roll call, provided, however, that upon and after the written recommendation of the mayor, the city council may pass such ordinance, order, resolution, or vote on the same day by a 2/3 yea and nay vote. So that part, the one you're looking to change is where it says a majority of all members of the city council, eligible members of the city council. Okay. And then the same thing with Rule 66, which Rule 66 states quorum, simple majority, and supermajority definitions. A quorum of the council or any of its committees shall consist of a simple majority of the entire membership. So you're looking to change that to eligible members. All votes of the council requiring a majority shall require a majority of the entire membership. Again, changing that to eligible members. And then all votes of a city council requiring a majority shall require a majority of those members present. Any other discussion on this? Committee? No. Councilor Jordan.
First thing I wanted to say is I hope Juan's feeling better. You're in our thoughts, Juan. I know you're not feeling too great, so I first wanted to just wish you well, number one. Number two, on the substance of it, I wanted to say that item 10 cannot be adopted because section 22 of the charter says it cannot be adopted. Section 22 of the charter is word for word the language in Rule 35, which, by the way, has been in the rules of the city council since 1897. This requires it to be all the members. There is, unfortunately, this thing about, well, I abstain. It's still all the members. It's the entire membership. When we did the reworking and just sort of updating, if you will, of rules, 38, we did so mindful of Section 22 of the charter. And so that was where that was coming from. And I don't see how that's even possible, because it says all the members of the city council. That's all of them. You know, you can't put in, well, eligible, because then you start getting into situations where, well, this one didn't come tonight, or this one didn't show up, or this one's abstaining. We've had votes where you needed 10, well, back in the day when we had 15 members, it would be 10 votes. If 10 people showed up, it's 10-0. 9 people show up, it's a showstopper. You can't pass it. So that's just the way it is. So item 10 cannot be adopted.
So right now, as it stands, point of information, if someone has to abstain for conflict of interest,
Right,
it doesn't lower the supermajority requirement.
correct.
No. Okay.
That's right.
Which is the reason why.
So if you got 12, like for example, I'll give you another example too. Forget even the supermajorities, even the majority votes. We had the Water Commission vote so that the president abstained. Whoever gets elected still needed 7 votes. It doesn't drop to, 6,
Well,
for
that would have
example.
been half.
Which still wouldn't be a majority, but let's just say
Yeah.
there were 2 abstentions.
Mhm.
It was my relative too, and I couldn't vote. So then we get into 11. It doesn't mean that water commissioner gets elected with 6.
That'd be
It still
7.
is 7, no matter if there were 7 of us voting.
Okay. So with that, I mean, there's a city charter thing. I will have to read more about Section 22. Councilor Anderson-Burgos.
So, I want to start, I hear it a lot, that our rules, our charter, since 1837, it could have been 100, 200, 300 years old. Look at what it says on the wall in our chambers. We are the maker of law, history. That's our room. We can make orders that fit in the current times we live in. I don't want to hear that because it's 100 or 150 years old, that we need to oblige by that 100%. No. The face of the city has been changing since then. It is not fair that if people abstain, that we're counting them in as a number of the full body. That's not fair. No matter which way you cut it.
Thank you, Councilor Anderson-Burgos. I have a question for Attorney Bassinet or Degnan. Is this like if we were to change the charter, which I know is a different procedure and not what we're discussing today, can that be a thing where we change the charter language where it says the eligible voters and all that, or is it like a Massachusetts state law where it's just all members of the body regardless of abstaining or conflict of interest?
That could be.
I'll be happy to answer that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bassinet.
The section that Councilor Jourdain is referring to is in the charter, as he mentioned, under Section 22. As referenced by President McGee earlier, that's been incorporated into language in the council rules directly. However, it only applies to those orders on the written recommendation of the mayor which is a financial order over $200. And those really are because they do not admit of delay and need to go forward with a, quote, supermajority. So that was originally in the charter. It's been carried over to the rules. And I'm sure Councilor Jordan knows when that happened much better than I would. But it seems to all revolve around the financial order recommended by the mayor for such expenditures of money over $200. Doesn't apply to every order or every ordinance or every resolution. At least that's the reading of section 22. To the more pointed question, can this be changed? Yes, it can. It can be done by home rule petition by the council. I would refer members to Attorney Degnan's October memo concerning how to change the charter, the different methods, and we'll make sure the new councilors also get that for the next meeting.
Thank you.
There's a fairly simple process that can be utilized if it does not involve changing the election or terms of the members of elected offices. So if you wanted to change, for example, the election of the treasurer, there are only a couple ways to do it. One of them would be a referendum by charter change, which, as many of us know, failed before. If you wanted to change things like the term of the mayor, it has to go on the ballot, as it did most recently. Another example would be changing the terms of the council, which some of you may have an interest in, I'm sure. That would have to go on the ballot as well. But other editorial changes, and a meeting can't go by without me saying the word Scrivener's error. That might appear on a charter or other documents. Those could also be changed as an exercise in editing. Most recently, that happened when the city decided to rename the council from the Board of Aldermen. I think there was a very lengthy charter change document sent down to edit the old Board of Aldermen references in the old charter. So again, yes, it can be done. And a quick reading of 22 seems to say it conforms with the council rules pertaining to financial orders. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope that outlines the process.
Thank you, Attorney Bissonette. So right now what I'm hearing is Rule 35 is the same language as the city charter. So we want to change Rule 35, we have to change the city charter. However, voting doesn't just happen with the finances, ordinance, we take votes on many different things. So going into Rule 66, which is also part of Councilor Anderson-Burgos' order, where it says, so a quorum of the council or any of its committee shall consist of a simple majority of the eligible membership, or all votes of the council requiring a majority shall require a majority of the eligible membership, which Rule 35 will still sort of come in and say, well, we can do this with ordinances, we can do this with finances, but if Rule 35 doesn't address what we're voting on, it should be eligible members. Councilor Jordan.
I think we'd have to do a state law review too. I mean, we're just looking at one component of it, but is there other applicable laws that speak to this? Is there other sections on appointments and all of this? We're going to perhaps try and carve out certain votes that it's less than the full body. Some we're not going to have. I think we get into murky territory when we start saying, well, this set of votes, it's this type of a membership versus others. We're going to overcomplicate this. I suppose anything is subject to change. However, I can tell you that these rules have worked quite fine for a long, long time. And we start getting into a situation where we've got 2, 3, who never knows how many people abstain or don't show up to a meeting. Does that mean you're not, what, can we define eligible too? What's that, where's the definition section? We're gonna need a definition section in the rules if we start going into all this nuance and parlance of things. Because then is it, well, I wasn't eligible because I didn't come to the meeting? You know, I was out of town, so I'm not eligible? Or is it only be when I have a conflict of interest? Well, what if it's, I think it's a conflict because I want to duck a vote. We have rules in here that you're supposed to vote on everything too. You're not supposed to be abstaining from votes. This is going to open up and invite problems. I don't think we should entertain any of this. People should come in here, take votes, do what they got to do. We're also trying to get consensus and build functioning as a legislative body, consensus to move the city forward on various items. So if you, for example, show up and you've got a quorum, say 7 people show up, and now you pass something 4-3, we want to get into that situation. I think we better be really careful about that. I wish Councilor McGivern was here tonight. I think he'd have a lot of opinions about this and on this issue because I would tend to think he thinks like I do on this. I think he's right. So anyways, I'll stop there, but this has not been a major problem, and it's, again, made sure that there isn't any gaming of the composition of how we take votes. Everybody knows these are what they are, and it's worked just fine for decades and decades and decades and decades, and maybe it also encourages people to stay out of conflicts of interest. Then we won't have all these worries about abstentions too. But if there are, then you know what? I think it's designed to have, let's think about that. We just had this recent go around about employees. One of the big sales pitches about having employees on the city council is, oh, don't worry about it, because if I'm in a conflict of interest, I can't vote. So this way it doesn't, well, now what is this? Is this a workaround out of that now? So we're trying to encourage conflicts of interest? So it starts reducing and making the votes easy. Don't worry, it'll pass anyways. Maybe, I don't think we want to get into that. I don't think that's good for the public or us as an institution.
Thank you, Councilor Jordan. Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti, you had something to say?
Yeah, I just actually, point of clarification, are we discussing items 10 and 11 or just 10 right now?
10 right now.
Okay, that's cool, thank you.
Councilor Anderson-Burgos.
Yes. I just wanted to point out the rule is only about the middle bullet point of Rule 66. It's not about establishing quorums or committee votes. And no, it's clearly only about people who abstain, councilors who abstain. So let me tell you a scary story. Let me make some assumptions so that I can deter from what I'm trying to do. Stop that. Okay? People are watching, people know. This is not about what you think it is. Stop making up stories. This is simply fixing what I see wrong on my 4 years as a city councilor. This is what this is about. I've sat here long enough and I'm seeing things happen and I'm thinking this is gonna help things make things get better. Don't make up stories or assumptions. That's horrible. And if that's what you're bringing to the city council, we have a long 2 years in front of us. I wish you would just stop doing that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Councilor Bacon.
So the point that I wanted to make earlier is that over the years, we've had certain counselors that have, relatives, say in a certain department in the city, who have abstained from votes under conflict of interest. We've never really tested out whether under, the strict interpretation of a conflict, if a person, simply because their brother who doesn't live with them works in another department, actually has a conflict on the matter. However, if a rule change like this is proposed, the function of abstaining takes on a whole greater significance than it ever has before. Because it's actually, if I'm understanding the argument of the maker, making them ineligible, which is never an interpretation that has been put on abstaining in the past. You know, and so to have it affect the whole count could, if a rule like this was adopted, wind up with very serious implications relative to how votes are taken. And I do think we're all elected, and I think significantly, we have 7 wards and 6 at large. And so I don't think any rule should be changed that minimizes the makeup of the council. Because we're here, some of us uniquely to represent a ward and others elected generally at large. And so I don't think we should make rules that limit that representation of our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bacon. Councilor McGee?
Yeah, I mean, I understand the intent of the order, and we have seen things happen in the council regarding certain orders where, you know, simple majority, supermajority, going back and forth, those who could vote, couldn't vote, or those who couldn't show up, didn't vote. And it causes some of the tension that we've seen. The issue is, in order to try and fix that, we have to be very cautious. I know Councilor McGivern would say that, and he'd talk about the history of bully politics and all that type of stuff. He's mentioned it before. But, I mean, I'm not going to use scare tactics as was mentioned or anything else. I'm just going to show an example where something could go wrong as it, you know, in trying in order to fix what's going on, it leads to something else. You know, look at our budget cycle. We get a budget from the mayor. We invite every department head in, of which, you know, sometimes the first meeting, all the counselors can make it. Maybe the next meeting, unfortunately, not everyone can make it. And you have 7 people here, 7 counselors here to listen to department heads. Someone could make a motion to say, approve the budget as is. There's your quorum. There's your majority, as we're talking about, and they approve the budget when all members are not here, who fully intend to be at that full city council meeting to make certain requests and cuts to balance the budget. So that's a slippery slope that I don't think we want to go down. I don't think it'll ever happen, but technically you have to think of some of the bad that could happen. So I think this type of order has to be really drilled down in a sense of, as was mentioned by Councilor Jane, if we're really going to get into how to address this stuff, you need definitions. You're going to need legal to look at more state law issues. The charter, section 22, if we're going to do that, you need a home rule petition. There's a lot more work that needs to be done on this. Once again, I agree with the intent. I understand some of the frustration from some of the things we've seen in the past. But to me, you have to be really careful on this stuff. So all I'm going to ask is that, you know, we can go around and around all night tonight. I don't think we're going to get any answer to it. So I'd make a motion to table, whether it's 10 or 10 and 11, to really get more detail from legal, as well as, you know, follow up on mass general law as to how far we really want to go with this, and how far we want to start defining certain terms of art.
So the motion is to table items 10 and 11
with getting legal involved as to,
with a request to legal to give us more information as to eligible members, voting, and all that information.
Mr. Chairman?
Did you, Attorney Dugnan, Attorney Bissonnette, does that make sense? Just want to make sure y'all got it.
Yes, if I may, I think what's being asked here is for legal to do a review of state law to see if there are other things we should be considering with respect to this rule change. So that's my understanding of the
Correct.
request.
Correct.
Correct. And that goes as well for the two-thirds supermajority. Just doing some research on myself, like Massachusetts law, what is required to be two-thirds at the local level and what we can decide to be either just a simple majority or two-thirds. So I think that information will be great to have for the next city council or for the next charter and rules committee. Mr. Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, I think that's good. The only point I wanted to mention is I'm not reading anything or creating any scandals here. I'm reading the plain language of these orders. And when there's, by the way, the word conflict of interest and abstaining for that, none of that's mentioned in this order. I'm reading the word eligible voting members, whatever that means. So just so we're all on the same page, I'm not casting any aspersions, I'm not starting any scandals or I'm just reading words that are in front of me and putting out hypotheticals and having us think these things through. And I think you're wise to just kind of think it all through, get all the information, and then we make a decision, whatever we're going to do. So I like where the committee's going with it.
Thank you, Councilor Jordan. One more person, Councilor Anderson-Burgos.
I'm sorry, that raised hand was from previous.
Thank you. And I have Councilor Murphy Rambelotti. Go ahead.
Yes, sorry. I just wanted to make one point on item 11, and I think it's great that we continue to look into it. My main point for item 11 is just getting some clarification on section 22 of the charter, which I believe is what calls for a simple majority on the third reading. And it's a 2/3 majority if we're trying to act on something on the same day. So just for what it's worth, I am inclined to discuss at our next meeting, either changing this rule or removing it, because it does kind of conflict with section 22. And this would just allow us to really act in a more democratic way, while also preventing changes that may happen. So those are just my thoughts on item 11, and I'm happy to continue the discussion at our next meeting.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy Rambelotti. So the motion is to table items 10 and 11 with a request to legal to give us more information as far as state laws when it comes to supermajority, simple majority, when and where we have to use those two different ones, and then also with what Councilor Murphy Rambelotti just said, also just looking at the city charter section 22 and seeing what words are on there in relation to rule number 38.
Mr. Chairman, could I recommend too that there's more than just section 22, like section 49 has a 2/3 section on it. There's other things. There's also other state law. There's a lot of state laws on the powers of city councilors. I think of one state law in particular. It's in chapter 44, I believe. I could get the citation for you, but says any counselor, one vote, can object to the passing of an ordinance on the same evening. There's a state law that actually says that.
Okay.
So there's a lot in there that to dive into.
Thank you, Councilor Jordan. So we have a month. Our next meeting is not until the 23rd of next month. So, we have plenty of time. Hopefully legal can get us some of this information at least a week before the next meeting. So that motion to table 10-11 with the request to legal. Any second?
Second.
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 All agree?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Anderson-Burgos. I hope you feel better.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely evening. Be
You
well.
too.
So back from the.
Want to go back to 1?
Yep.
So make a motion, move Item 1.
Second. All agree?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No.
Aye.
So, item 1 was an order put in by me. Is this order that the city council rules are reviewed, reorganized, and that titles are added for accessibility. So, new councilor, when I opened up the city council rules, I'm like, what the heck is this mess? That's literally the term, that's the words that came to my mind. And a lot of it has to do, I mean, one of them, if we look at the Boston City Council rules, which is one extreme, and then we have Amherst, which is a smaller town, another extreme. They both have titles in their rules. So that, one thing, it really makes it more user-friendly, it makes it reader-friendly, and also accessibility. It meets some accessibility needs, making sure that there's a flow to what the rules are written out. So that's a big chunk of the reason why I put in this order. I don't think it's something that will be completed today, because it'd be adding titles to everything, and also shortening and like combining rules that are sort of saying the same thing in just different ways. So I think that's the purpose of me putting in that order. Any discussion? Councilor McGee?
Yeah, I don't want you to hold back. Tell us how you feel.
Mess.
But no, in all seriousness, I would say, yeah, the rules are, they could be tuned up a bit, or the presentation of them. I would say maybe getting a copy to all the counselors of, as you said, as examples, the Boston, Amherst ones, and then coming up with a draft of what you think the way this one should flow, or how you're thinking, and then ultimately sending that out for review, and then coming to another meeting to try and edit what that draft looks like.
Sure.
So it's like a work in progress, but at least kind of people see exactly the way the flow you're kind of thinking of, and then that way everyone has the ability to look at differences of different communities to ours and your draft, and then ultimately come up with a consensus.
Oh. Thank you, Councilor McGee. Councilor Murphy-Rambelotti?
That sounds great. Oh, is my hand still up? I'm sorry.
No, I thought you just made a noise, but
yeah.
you probably didn't.
No, it's okay. No, I totally agree with that. I'd love to take a look into Boston, Amherst, other communities, and have it be a work in progress.
Any other discussion? Okay, so my motion would be just to table item 1, and it's the work in progress for the next month or two.
All right, motion to table.
Motion to table.
With a request for a draft for
Okay.
We
everyone.
request to draft before the next council meeting, or before the next Charter and Rules Committee meeting. All agree?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so item 1 tabled. Motion to take items 2, 3, 4, and 5 together as a package.
Second.
Okay, motion seconded. All agree?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
No. Your eyes are coming in after the opposed.
She's always opposing.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You're good.
I'm dedicated. I want everyone to know how dedicated I am to being at this meeting now.
So orders put in by me, order that we degender the language of Rule 2, Rule 4, Rule 37, Rule 62. And actually, after putting the order and rereading the rules, there's also there's at least one other rule where I found that it also has the he language. Now, the reason why I put this forward is just words matter. I know a lot of times we like to make fun of words or anything, but like if the way I look at it, if we're creating a system here, and this system right here, right now, humans come in, look at these words. If it says something that he, the president, it sort of says, it should just be a he to be president. It can be something seem very small, but it can actually have a lot of effect. Technically, if we have a woman or someone that identifies as she, these rules are going against that because they don't identify as he, they're a she. So, I mean, I don't think it's a huge discussion. Hopefully it's not a huge discussion. I think it's something that we all agree on, that there are no genders when it comes to being a counselor. I mean, we can identify as we want, and I think our rules should reflect that. Any discussion? Councilor Bacon.
I would just note that you could just amend the order to have it apply to all the rules
That's, yeah.
without having to file more orders.
Got
That
it.
was my only comment.
Thank you, Councilor Bacon. We were, Councilor McGee and I were discussing a little bit before, and
And
yeah,
just-
thank you.
Just, I know you're of a different generation in the room, but in the olden days, if you will, the he was sort of the generic neutral term, even though now it's all controversial.
Thank you, Councilor Bacon. Any other discussion? Councilor Jordan.
I was looking at, point understood, but 62 actually was degendered. So I don't know if you meant another number, but it already has the his or her and he and she.
So he or she, the reality there, we're also in a generation where someone can not identify neither he nor she. They can be a they can be
Oh, God.
anything they choose
Okay.
to identify as. So
Can we just talk
we have to,
about position
huh?
without getting into all that?
What happened?
I'm sorry, I jumped in.
No, so that's really, I mean, they seems to be the wording, the preferred wording to really encompass all, versus like he or she. So that's why that's there as well. But I do agree. There's, like as mentioned, there are other rules as well. So we can make a motion to just degender all of the city council rules again. Councilor McGee.
Yeah, I know we're talking in the back. I mean, it says 2, 4, 37, 62. You found one.
Rule 41.
41. So 41. I'd just say motion would be to amend 2, 3, 4, and 5 to say throughout the rules that it be amended.
Okay. So the motion would be to amend items 2, 3, 4, and 5 to read and said that all of the whole city council rule document be degendered.
Which I know we brought this up a while back. I think, Kevin, you were still here, that the rules were supposed to be updated to do that. And I think it was just more of it just never was done. So it was more of we weren't able to get to it, or the administrative system wasn't able to get to it. So I'd say, we pass this now as amended, and then hopefully when our administrative assistant has time, that it can be updated for all of us.
Cool. So the motion would be to, again, we got to amend it first. So motion to amend items 2, 3, 4, and 5 to read, to change, to degender all of the city council rules. Second. Any opposed? No. Thank you.
I was waiting for the aye. I was waiting for
Waiting for Tesla's no. Okay, so now the motion would be to to approve the amended items 2, 3, 4, 5, where it says that we degendered the whole city council rules. Second?
Second.
Okay. All agree?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? No? Cool. So it's sent to city council.
Make a motion to take up item 7.
A motion to take up item 7. Second. All agree?
Second.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
So item 7 is for Councilor Bacon. It says amend city council rules by adding legal form for ordinance changes shall be provided 48 hours prior to the city council meeting. If legal form is not provided 48 hours to the meeting, upon objection of any member of the city council, the matter will be tabled until the next meeting. The purpose of this rule is to ensure that each councilor has time to read proposed changes prior to voting on the matter. So we do have the maker of the order here. Councilor Bacon, you want to speak on it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I filed this because we've had a number of occasions where we've received legal form at the city council meeting. And unfortunately, over the last few years, it's led to the need to correct at least 3 ordinances once they were actually filed and listed as our ordinances. So the goal of this order is to hopefully prevent that. I'm also having legal form on more complicated matters come back to committee for the committee to review before it goes to the council. So we might not meet the 45-day rule, but I'd rather have it right than quick. So anyway, it's simply so that people, and I think there has been an objection of at least one, if not more counselors, that they had no time to read the legal form before they were pressed to vote. And I just think if we clean up the process, we'll get a better outcome.
Thank you,
Pretty straightforward.
Thank you, Councilor Bacon. Anyone from the committee? Okay, Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to point out, I actually did look up my citation. It's Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 43, Section 22, which gives the power of any city councilor to table any item if they're trying to pass all the readings in one night. So I wanted to pass that along to legal for when they're doing their review. That also would apply here. And that's why I bring this up, because I would tend, if I don't have a legal form that I've had an opportunity to review and I'm candidate, like, oh, it's on your desk, you know, unless it's totally not controversial, it's like maybe one sentence. Because one of the takeaways from that whole issue about the setbacks was things not being given an opportunity to be reviewed, and then it was an oops, you know, it was picked up later. I think at that point, this is a good order, and this is a good rule that Councilor Bacon's suggesting, but I just want to also say, absent even this, I really wouldn't need this rule in order to have the authority to, as she states in here,
To object.
upon objection of any member of the council, the matter will be tabled to the next meeting. I would maintain that Mass General Law 43, Section 22 would also already give me that power for any member, because typically when ordinances come in, they have all the readings on one night when they come out of the committee report, and they go through all the different stages on one night. So I just wanted to point that out since we're taking a look at that.
Thank you, Councilor Jordan. Any other discussion? Councilor McGee.
Yeah, I agree with the intent of the order. I mean, I just want to be clear, because they're online right now, and that's our legal department. Thank you for what you do. It's not like we don't know it. They've been decimated,
Oh, absolutely.
staffing wise, and they're doing the best they can to get this stuff to us. So I do appreciate what they're doing. And I'm not saying, Councilor Bacon, your order is saying that they're not.
This all predates the current legal team.
There are issues where it does come out, and we just don't have time. I just don't want the legal department to think that, you know, this is coming at them. We appreciate what they're doing. This is really for especially new counselors as well as us. We need time to read this stuff, and maybe having this in place kind of stops that last minute stuff where we get it. There's times that we have to get something done, and we do the best we can, but maybe forcing ourselves to have a 48-hour time frame so we can have time to read it is a good thing on us. I don't want the legal department to think it's on them. It's really for us to have the ability to sit down and really go through this stuff. So I agree with the order. I know what Kevin's saying about Mass General Law, so I'd be in support of this just to allow us to have an ability to have time.
Right.
Attorney Bissonnette has his hands raised. Attorney Bissonnette.
Just, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a point. First of all, thank you, President McGee, for the kind words. As most of you know, this law department staff came in pretty much beginning with Solicitor Ball's appointment in April. And we have essentially been running a three-person operation since then, with another changeover. Luckily, Attorney Degnan has joined us, and we've recently added a paralegal. So in addition to handling all the real estate transactions going on with the South Hoya project, the HRA, the HHA, as well as the city itself, we're also handling some 20 to 25 cases in housing court, as well as other litigation that's not been sent out. We're trying to keep all that in-house. I was told today, and perhaps some veteran counselors may have more insight, that at one point, back some 10 years ago, the law department had perhaps a dozen people on staff, including someone full-time assigned to work with the council. I know that we're trying to function at the same level with half of that capacity, if you will. But there is no reason why some of these ordinances can't get to you timely. And I think, frankly, in reviewing the history of the buffer problem, I think that was one of the issues that caused this to be a mistake. So let me just ask you, as you consider this, to also consider that not all matters are created equal. A traffic ordinance change, for example, may be handled rather quickly and can be put together and get on the books rather quickly, as opposed to something like the original work that was done to define the marijuana ordinance under Solicitor Pizer's leadership. So I think we've got to try to balance that and not expect that after a late ordinance meeting on a Tuesday night that the solicitor's office is likely to make the noon deadline for Friday filing for council if there's something either controversial or not very clear that we're trying to make sure that we get right. And so, you know, having it 48 hours before the council has to vote on it, I think is a great idea. It's not always going to happen 48 hours from an ordinance committee meeting. And I just wanted to make people aware that on the more serious matters, it's going to be more time consuming as opposed to perhaps stop sign ordinances or changing a street sign. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Attorney Bracenet. I know, so being part of the ordinance committee, I know we're working on the legal form as we're meeting. So the goal with that is to essentially have the legal form ready at the end of it when we vote for it, at the end of the meeting. So, okay, Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. So I've intentionally written the order so that if there is no objection, a simple, straightforward legal form such as parking, traffic, etc., could come to the council and be approved. It requires the objection of a counselor, even though we're seeking the 48 hours. And also, I have been coordinating with our legal team. This is no message to our current legal team. This is a historical reference to what has happened in our ordinances when we have put the cart before the horse. So what I am communicating and coordinating with our legal team on is how we are handling the legal form. The Ordinance Committee is supposed to decide what language is desired before we ask legal to put it in legal form. Now, sometimes we ask legal to help us by giving us a draft, but it's our job to let them know what we're seeking in terms of the legal language. And in the past, we had all these various drafts over long periods of time. So that is what I and the committee are seeking to change in terms of the process. And so Jeffrey, our administrative assistant, is going to be putting up language on the screen. So we're looking at the same language in real time. And hopefully we're going to avoid, and I mean, nothing's perfect. I'm sure we're going to make some mistakes too. But I think if in the new approach that we're taking and how we're communicating and coordinating with our legal department, I think a lot of it will be diminished. And I think historically, when we're asking our legal department to draft legal language before we even know if people want it, you know, is making them do a lot of research and work. And I think we shouldn't really be asking them to do a lot of extra work when they are digging out from so much already. And so I have a very positive regard and working relationship with our current legal department. And I don't believe for a minute any of them took my order as any sort of a poke at them. And because it is not. And I look forward to continuing to work with all of them.
Thank you, Councilor Aiken. Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to also make it a point to Attorney Bissonnette and Attorney Dignan even though, for example, like I was a stickler on that point that we had at the council about the setbacks being, those were the setbacks at the time, that's in no way a reflection on them. And I know what a hard job they have with very limited resources, and I admire. Of course, everyone well knows, and if they don't at this point, know what a personal fondness I have for Lisa Ball. I think she's a wonderful person. In her first incarnation as city solicitor, and now in her second encore performance. So, I certainly wish them the very best. And Mike is correct to say that, they have limited resources. There were more resources in the past. I don't think it was a dozen attorneys, but there were more attorneys. And the council did have its own counsel. And I know I've certainly advocated for that with Attorney Ball, and I think she's very sympathetic to that cause, that the city council would have its own attorney. I think that would help us on a number of levels. And so anyways, look forward to, in my own encore performance here, I continue to wish them the very best, and I appreciate in advance all their hard work on our behalf.
Thank you, Councilor Jordan.
Thank you.
So right now, the question I have here would be, where would this fit within our rules? Is it another rule, or is this something that can be nestled within another rule, like Rule 38 that talks about how we adopt ordinances, or Rule 37 does mention the city solicitor, and
58.
you said 30.
Ordinance shall not be drawn into legal form unless the Ordinance Committee has taken a vote on the matter, and
add this.
legal form shall be provided 48 hours.
So Rule 50.
So Rule 58.
Okay. So the motion would be to
amend.
amend
58.
Rule 58 in our city council rules to include the language of the order which states that if legal form is not provided 48 hours prior to the meeting, upon objection of any member of the city council, the matter will be tabled until the next meeting. The purpose of this, and that's it.
Yeah, so stop there. So I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion made, second, all agree?
Aye.
Second. Aye.
All opposed? Okay, cool. So item 7 sent to the full council.
Before we get to the last one, Tessa, thank you for being here tonight. I know it's for those who don't know, she's on vacation, and she's zooming
I
in
didn't
to
get
be here. It's absolute dedication. Brenna says to say hi to you, but thank you very much. I mean, honestly, I'll tell you, prior to COVID, this never would have been possible, and you may not have
I
had
know.
a quorum for meetings. So it's amazing how far we've come, and to the dedication of counselors joining in. I've watched, Kevin join in, Linda join in. I mean, it's just been, it's been helpful that we've been able to have this. So Tessa, have fun after this on your vacation.
Before
I will.
We got one more. Don't leave yet.
I'm not. Don't worry. We're good. We're good.
we have Attorney Bissonnette with a hand raised.
Just as a side note, on that open meeting law, it's an expectation now that the House and the Senate will concur and pass an extension of these rules that allow participation by Zoom through the middle of July is the current date. So beyond approval of the next budget, it looks like.
That's good.
Thank you, Attorney
Thank you.
Bissonnette.
Motion to take up item 12.
Motion to take up item 12 off the table. Second. All agree?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. So item 12, as we're talking about Zoom, order that we create a technology advisory board or committee to advise the council on the impact and implications of technological innovations on financial services, human services, infrastructure, politics, taxing of tech companies. The board will give recommendations on policy change in order to bring our systems up to date. So I put in this order with the intention of hopefully creating a committee within our council that really focuses on technology. we just talked about Zoom. We can talk about Google that we use. We can talk about Facebook. We can talk about all these tech companies that are multi-trillion-dollar companies, while many smaller cities and towns are suffering using the technology that they're giving us, and we give them personal information because that's how those tech companies work with the algorithms. So I think it's just time that we explore creating a committee so that we can talk about some of the things listed on here, how technology really affects education, the financial services, the taxing of tech companies, which is something that we don't talk about enough. Again, multi-trillion-million-dollar companies that are sending their CEOs around space while we still have unhoused people in our community. So that's really where that's coming from, up for discussion. Councilor McGee.
You want an actual, like an ordinance committee, or did you want more of kind of what we did when dealing with these type of issues? Like, I'm sorry, Kevin can help me out here if I'm using the wrong term, like an ad hoc
Ad
committee.
hoc.
There,
We have a rule, the president
Yeah.
can create ad hoc committees.
And that was kind of like, we did the elections committee, where we reviewed all the polling locations and everything else, and we did a few meetings on that and had a bunch of people involved, like police, fire, school department, everything. And then ultimately gave a report to the full council as to what we found. Do you want something more like that? So that way it's not, if someone really wants to be on the ad hoc committee, they can join in and do it. Whereas with committees itself, they have to be assigned.
Gotcha.
And I think it would be more of ad hoc simply because it allows more flexibility on who can just join in.
For sure. Yeah, and so, it's just a starting point. So I do think eventually, I think it would be smart for us to have this within the body, but I think until we get to that point and really understand, what kind of orders will be sent there, I think we should have an ad hoc and start having these important discussions, how technology literally is intertwined in every aspect of our lives. So,
Okay. I'm all in favor of setting up an ad hoc committee, and then we can get people to volunteer and or who want to be on it.
cool. Councilor Jordan?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great approach. Basically either that, or if you wanted to even take a baby step before that, just a suggestion is, you put something in an order in DG&R, and you start having a discussion there, and then see how that develops. Then you say, oh, okay, this is really generating a lot of work. Now let's do ad hoc committee, right? Like it actually needs that level. And then you say, okay, this thing's really mushrooming more from there, and just sort of see how it goes. If you were looking for a baby step even to an ad hoc committee, otherwise you could just go to an ad hoc committee appointed by the president, and that also allows you the flexibility of having non-counselors on the committee too, by the way, which is nice, because on standing committees, you're not allowed to have non-counselors on the committee.
But ad hoc you can.
Right.
So on an ad hoc, you can do that.
So I'm gonna, how about we make a motion, where I'm at right now, make a motion to table this committee with this item, so show up in the next one. The chair of D&GR is here. There are some orders that are coming your way, Murphy from Belletti, just letting you know.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Cool. So the motion is to table item 12 to the next.
Second.
Second, all agree?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you. You also.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good one. Enjoy vacation.
Enjoy your vacation.
Enjoy the